Hi, I'm Jill Johnson Young, and I am the author of The Rebellious Widow, which just came out. It's available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, at therebelliouswidow.com, and it's available at your local bookseller. So if you have one you like, please go support them. They could use the business, especially now. The reason I wrote this book is not to write something sad. It's not to be an autobiography, although I am a widow. In fact, I've been widowed twice, and I'm married a third time. And you'll learn my story in this book because it's not like most stories, I promise. It's also not written like most grief books. It's not sad. It's built on saying goodbye together in a positive way, managing the illness instead of illness managing you, figuring out how to get hospice in and what a good hospice is. It talks about how to say goodbye. How does that work? How do you do that? What happens in those initial few days, weeks, and months after someone you love has died? What does it do to you emotionally and cognitively? What does it do to you physically and spiritually? And I talk about breaking those widow rules because those widow rules are no fun and they're not healthy. And nobody tells you what they are. You have to learn them by finding out that you've broken them and upset somebody. So I define them, you're welcome, and then I tell you how to break them, you're more welcome. And then it has the 5 tenets of how to be a rebellious widow, how to remake your life. Not that you wanted to, and I get that. I didn't either. Not the first time, not the second time. I didn't want to be widowed. But sometimes we just don't have a choice. And when that time comes, either we manage it or it manages us. Either we manage our grief or someone tries to manage it for us. And when you let that happen, you give up all of your ability to make your own decisions. And that's not healthy. Now, this book is not just for widows. It's for widows and their partner before the partner dies. Say pre-widows. It's also for anyone who loves someone who has a terminal illness. Because we don't learn about how to manage terminal illnesses other places. I learned it because I worked for hospice for more than a decade. I learned it because as a therapist, I specialize in end of life and grief and loss. But it's not sort of normal conversation for most people. Most people don't talk about Shane Stokes breathing. It's not normal conversation. It is at our house because of me and because now I'm married to a funeral director. We talk about this all the darn time. This book is for those who need help either before a loss, during a loss, or to understand how to help someone after a loss, or if you've had that loss, even if it's not a spouse, because much of grief is the same. What grief isn't for me as a rebellious widow is something that goes on and on. It's not something where if you are not still grieving 5 years from now, you didn't love someone enough. It's a time to finish up. It's a time to regroup, to replan, to reconfigure, and to grow. Because that's what grief should be, a time for growth. A time to say, my entire world has changed. Now what? But in a positive way, not a despairing way. So I hope you'll find The Rebellious Widow. Again, it's at rebelliouswidow.com. It's Barnes & Noble. It's Amazon. It's at your bookseller down the street or the one who's online, who's independent and needs some business right now. It's a helpful book. And you know what's interesting? Every time a therapist friend of mine reads it, they come back and say, I didn't know this. I didn't know that. It never dawned on me that I had any bias in terms of what happens to someone after a loss. And in fact, we all do. So if a therapist can tell me that they went to therapist school and they didn't know this stuff, guaranteed the rest of us don't either. I've even had hospice nurses tell me this has stuff in it they didn't know. It's written from research, it's written from boots on the ground, on the job training, and it's written as a clinician. and it's valuable. I hope you'll get it for me. Thanks. Bye-bye.